Alright, hello guys, happy early Thanksgiving. Today I got something special for you today. Um, Today we got Berkeley's metaphysics and epistemology, so this video is going to go in two of the playlists. And so some works that Berkeley has written is a treatise concerning the principles of human knowledge, the three dialogues between Hylas and Philonous, and three, an essay towards a new theory of vision. I have read the first and second book. I've read the three dialogues, the treatise concerning the principles of human knowledge, but not the third one. I will definitely take a look at the third one. So George Berkeley. So George Berkeley is a talented metaphysician who is known for his subjective idealism, right? And so Berkeley posits that ordinary objects are bundles or collections of ideas, like a table. And so in the three dialogues, Berkeley links the existence of unperceived objects like, oh, how when I don't perceive a tree, how is it still growing? And so he posits God, right? So he links the existence of unperceived objects to God's volitions or decrees. This means that an object continues to exist even when unperceived because God wills it to exist, meaning he intends to cause a corresponding idea in finite minds under the right circumstances. Basically, unperceived objects exist in the mind of God. Sorry, I had to just check if my mic was working in OBS Studio. And so Berkeley's immaterialism or idealism, right? Immaterialism in its simplest form denies the existence of matter as an independently existing substance, right? Instead, it posits that reality consists of minds and their ideas. So Berkeley's version of immaterialism is referred to as subjective idealism, or you can call it Berkeleyan idealism. And so one of the key principles is esse percipi, a key concept that is translated as to be is to be perceived, or in other words, to exist is to be perceived. And then I know there's like an addition saying, oh, to be or to exist is to be perceived and to be a perceiver. Or to be a perceiver, basically. And so this is Berkeley's famous maxim that is the core of his empiricism and metaphysics. And so Berkeley argues that sensible objects, the things we perceive through our senses, the things that we get from a sense data, right, they cannot exist independently of perception. Their existence is tied to their being perceived by a mind. And so minds and ideas, which are very fundamental, right? So for Berkeley, reality comprises two fundamental categories: minds that are active perceiving entities and ideas that are passive perceived objects. He maintains that we have direct access only to our own ideas and we can infer the existence of other minds through their effects. And so the role of God is crucial in Berkeley's philosophy. And so as an infinite and eternal mind, God perceives all things, ensuring the continued existence of the world even when no finite mind is perceiving them. So God is also the ultimate source of our ideas. And here are some arguments for immaterialism. First is the inseparability of qualities. Philonous, which is just Berkeley, right? Berkeley is arguing through Philonous. He argues that primary qualities such as extension, figure, and motion cannot be conceived separately from secondary qualities like color, taste, and smell, because whenever you try to conceive or imagine an object, the two require each other. They are inseparable, right? They always come together when you conceive of an object. And so since secondary qualities are admitted to be mind dependent, primary qualities must also be so. Second is the problem of interaction. Berkeley points out how hard it is to explain or justify how an immaterial mind can interact with a material substance, right? If mind and matter are fundamentally different, how can they causally influence each other? And his solution is just to eliminate material substance altogether, suggesting that all causation originates from minds and ultimately from God. Third, the relativity of perception. Philonous, again Berkeley, draws attention to the relativity of perception, saying that different perceivers might experience the same object differently. This would mean that perception is not a passive reception of objective qualities, but an active construction of reality within the mind. And fourth is the impossibility, of abstract ideas. So note that the empiricists like Berkeley, John Locke, and David Hume are nominalists, right? They deny the metaphysical existence or the ontological existence of universals. And so Berkeley rejects the notion of abstract ideas, arguing that we cannot form ideas of things devoid of all particular qualities. Thus, he is a nominalist, and so for him, any idea must be concrete and particular. And the attempt to think of things like matter or substance in the abstract leads to contradictions. And Berkeley addresses some responses from materialism, like the problem of unperceived objects. Like again, Berkeley responds to this problem by positing that unperceived objects continue to exist because they are perceived by God. God is the all-perceiver. God perceives everything. And he also posits a counterfactual analysis, stating that unperceived objects exist even if it would be perceived under the right circumstances. Second is the nature of spirits, which is also just mind. So when he's talking about spirits, he's referring to minds. Some questions rise of how we can have a notion of spirits or minds if we cannot perceive them. Berkeley responds saying that we gain an understanding of spirits, which are minds, through our own case, through self-awareness, through self-consciousness as thinking beings. Third, the problem of causation. Given that ideas are passive, how can anything be caused? And so Berkeley attributes causal powers to spirits, suggesting that God causes our perceptions and that finite spirits have limited causal agency. And so Berkeley contends that such belief in materialism leads to skepticism and atheism, as it suggests that our senses mislead us about the nature of reality and that the world could function without God. Berkeley challenges the representationalist materialistic view, right? Just indirect realism, that we perceive reality indirectly, right? But where our perceptions are still caused by external objects. That's the indirect realist stance. And so he begins with a simple argument. Number one, or premise one, we perceive ordinary objects, houses, mountains, etc. Two, we perceive only ideas. Therefore, three, ordinary objects are ideas. And so representationalists or indirect realists who hold that we indirectly perceive material things through our direct perception of ideas could counter this argument by claiming that our ideas represent external objects, right? The external objects cause our perception. And so Berkeley challenges this representation by presenting one of the most important principles, the likeness principle. Right, and it basically says that an idea can only resemble another idea. Thus, he argues, saying that that resemblance between an idea and a mind-independent material object is nonsensical, and it's not justified, or at least it's like bullcrap, right? And so, as the mind can only compare its own ideas, and so Berkeley makes 3 points against John Locke. Number one, ideas can only resemble other ideas, like we have noted. Berkeley argues that an idea in our mind, like the shape of an apple, can't resemble a physical, mind-independent object because only ideas can resemble other ideas. A mental phenomenon can't truly match something physical. Two, we can't compare ideas to external objects. To judge if an idea resembles an object, we would need to compare the two. But we only ever have access to our ideas, not the external world, since we can't step outside our mind to literally check it, right? We can't say if our ideas resemble objects. We don't know. Third, primary versus secondary qualities is incoherent. Primary versus secondary qualities is found in John Locke. I made a John Locke video on this. I recommend you watch it. And so Berkeley challenges the distinction between primary qualities like shape and solidity and secondary qualities like color and taste. Also note that if my headphones shut off, it's because I'm using a Bluetooth headphone, and like after a short amount of time it just shuts off. But I'll turn it back on. You can't imagine a shape without some color or other sensory qualities, and you can't imagine secondary qualities without a shape. The two are inseparable, so the distinction breaks down. And so this is Berkeley's master argument. Note that Locke was an indirect realist, right? He believed that there was an external world perceived indirectly via sense data. Skepticism. This faces the view of perception problem. I got this from Kane B. If you guys want to check out another video on idealism, I recommend Kane B. This, if all we perceive is sense data, how do we know that these sense data, right, accurately represent the world or match up to reality? Because sense data, if you're an empiricist, that's the only thing you have. So this is kind of like a meta-epistemic question. It's questioning the very sources of knowledge, right? And so Berkeley's solution is to simply deny that there are any external mind-independent objects. All that exists are minds and their ideas. Thus, the skeptical problem evaporates. You can't doubt the existence of your own perceptions. We don't need to worry whether the view accurately represents the world because the world just is the view. And so the argument as follows for idealism. Number one, we can conceive of something existing mind-independently only if we can conceive of it existing unconceived. 2. We cannot conceive of an unconceived thing. And 3. We cannot conceive of something existing mind independently. And so you can't imagine a mind independent object because the moment you think of it, it's no longer mind independent. It's in your mind. And so an objection rises. It says, this argument confuses the act of conception with the content of conception. It confuses what we conceive with what we conceive of. To conceive something, it trivially follows that we must be engaged in the act of conception, but it doesn't follow that the content of our conception must be a conceived of object. And so it's essential to distinguish. Number one, an object of which I am conceiving that exists unconceived, and 2, an object of which I am conceiving as existing unconceived. And so another objection, I got this from Kane B. Like again, I said, you guys can watch Kane B. Really good video. And so objection, also, how do we distinguish between reality and imagination? Berkeley's ontology is weird because it seems that anything can pop out into existence just by perceiving it. And so Berkeley argues that ideas are passive. They don't have the power to cause anything. Since objects are just collections or bundles of ideas, they too can't cause anything on their own. Only minds which perceive and organize ideas have causal power. And so according to Berkeley, one billiard ball doesn't actually cause the other to move because ideas and objects as bundles of ideas are passive and they lack causal power. But instead, the power or the apparent cause and effect relationship we observe is caused by God or orchestrated by God, who ensures the consistent order of events in the world. So you could call it like the uniformity of nature. Right, we'll get into David Hume's epistemology later. And so God is the true cause behind what we perceive as causation. So this is Berkeley's two arguments simplified. Number one is that idealism follows from empiricism. Empiricism says that all knowledge comes from experience. Since we only experience ideas, not objects themselves, there is no basis to believe in mind-independent objects. Therefore, idealism, the idea that only minds and ideas exist, is the logical conclusion. Second, mind-independent objects are incoherent, right? Because objects are thought to have primary, which are like shape, size, and secondary, which are color, taste, qualities. But both types of qualities depend on being perceived. And if all qualities require a mind to exist, the idea of an object existing independently of any mind doesn't make sense. And this is Berkeley on the nature of spirit. And so note that when Berkeley mentions spirit, he's talking about minds. So minds are spirits. And he carefully distinguishes between minds and ideas. They are not the same thing. And so Berkeley's concept of spirit raises a lot of big challenges. But also note that in the three dialogues, he doesn't really get deep into spirit. So we don't have like a lot from him. Just a little bit. And so he initially claims that we have no idea of spirit because it is an active substance, unlike passive ideas. However, this raises the concern that Berkeley has simply replaced material substance with equally mysterious spiritual substances. And so Berkeley responds by saying that we have a notion of spirit, meaning that we understand that what the word means. He initially suggests that this understanding comes from our own case, through our own awareness of ourselves as thinking things, which is basically the I, right? And so in the dialogues, he further clarifies that we have an immediate intuition of ourselves through reflection, suggesting that we gain access to ourselves as spirits through conscious awareness or self-conscious. So this is Berkeley's ontology laid out. So ideas are the object's perceptions, including sensations, thoughts, and images. They are passive, meaning they cannot cause anything. And so Berkeley distinguishes between real things and chimeras, which are imaginary things. Real things are caused by God and exhibit steadiness, vivacity, and distinctness and order. Right? They're structured, they're uniformed. And chimeras, on the other hand, depend on our finite human wills. And so spirits, minds. Spirits are active substances capable of perceiving and willing. They are distinct from ideas and are not themselves perceivable. And Berkeley believes that we know spirits to our own case, through our self-awareness and introspection. And so God again is an infinite spirit who is the ultimate source and cause of all ideas. He acts in accordance with the laws of nature, ensuring that the order and regularity of our perception. God phone turned off again, like I said, but I'm back. So God's continuous perception guarantees the continuous existence of unperceived objects. Oh, but I forgot to put out on the slide that in Berkeley's ontology, he also says that God's existence is self-evident, and I believe he said common sense, if I remember. And so the key concepts, just you gotta know again, is SAS, percipi, and aut percipere. That just means to be is to be perceived or to perceive. And so, which is very central to Berkeley's philosophy, you have to know this again. For things other than spirits or minds, their existence depends on being perceived. And mind dependence. All things except God are mind dependent, right? This doesn't mean that they only exist when a human mind perceives them. Rather, their existence depends on being perceived by some other mind, which is ultimately God's mind, right? And so, bundles of ideas. Ordinary objects like tables and trees are not material substances, but collections or bundles of ideas. These bundles are formed based on the regular co-occurrence of certain ideas in our experience, and then the laws of nature. God has established laws of nature that govern the regular patterns of our sensory ideas, ensuring a stable and predictable world. These laws are not causal explanations, but descriptions of the orderly way God causes our perceptions. If you thank you for watching, guys. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And if you want to know where I get my information, um, I look at the books. But if you don't have the books, I would look at SCP, which is the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, and the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Those both of them work well. And they actually provide very accurate information, if not the most accurate information, right? Because it's actually made by professional philosophers. Thank you for watching.